Happy Halloween. You know, I was figuring out what to do for this. I could do a 2K thing. No. So welcome back to the Yap Sesh. Today we're going to be looking at some of the scariest WWE conspiracy theories of all time. You know, a lot of things have happened in wrestling, and imagine all the stuff that we know about. You know what I mean? All of the stories that we've heard, all of the controversies that we know about. That's all the stuff we know. My question is, how much stuff do we not know? It could be a lot. It could be stuff that is never going to be revealed, but only stuff that people could speculate about, including myself, because today I'm going to be giving you 4 conspiracy theories that I've known about and read about recently, and I will give you one of my own. It's one that I genuinely believe in, even though there's not, I guess, like, irrefutable evidence that this thing took place. So here we go. Number 1, CM Punk got fired from AEW on purpose. Now, CM Punk did not wrestle for 7 years. He left WWE in 2014 and debuted in AEW in 2021. Now, I feel like his run in AEW was pretty successful. He won 2 AEW World Championships, technically 3 if you count the real World Championship or whatever they called it back then. But in between all of that, CM Punk took a stop at a Monday Night Raw taping. I don't know where the building was. Kid, maybe you'll be able to help me with that. And there was a lot of talk about it. CM Punk is backstage at Monday Night Raw. He even said it himself. He met with Triple H, he talked to Bayley, Natalya, and then he was told to leave the building. From who? I don't know. Now, of course, this is something that you're going to have to say. I mean, CM Punk, a contracted wrestler in AEW, also somebody that has never stepped foot in a WWE thing in a long time, is there. What is going on with that? Is Punk trying to talk his way into the company? I don't understand what's happening here. Now, here's the theory. The theory is that CM Punk, at that very meeting where he met all his friends back at Monday Night Raw and maybe even spoke to a couple of the higher ups, there's no way that people in high positions at the company did not see and speak to CM Punk at the time. The theory is that they worked out a deal where Punk was allowed and given, you know, open arms to come back to WWE. The only problem is Punk was still in contract for a little bit longer in AEW. Now, we've already had the situation at this point with, you know, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. They called it Brawl Out, where after, you know, what actually did even start that? Oh, CM Punk went on the press conference and spoke a lot of shit about the EVPs, and then they all had a brawl backstage, which I'm still waiting to see the footage on. I'd love to see that. But Punk was suspended for a little while, came back, and then at All In, it was All In, London, 2023. CM Punk, before his match, his opening match against Samoa Joe for the real World Championship in AEW, he had a situation with Jack Perry. Now, Jack Perry had a thing in the camera where he said, "Real glass, you know, cry me a river," because there was an ongoing story, you know, in the back where CM Punk told Jack Perry, "You should not be using real glass. It's dangerous. You know, you need to be using work glass. There's no point in using real glass." He was trying to talk Jack Perry out of it. A lot of people was trying to talk to him about that. And Punk took what Jack Perry said as a shot, a public dig at him. And the one thing that Punk does not like is when people bring up his name unprovoked or not in terms of a storyline. Why are you bringing me up? Why are you trying to make me look like an asshole on television? So in revealed backstage footage that the Young Bucks themselves revealed on an episode of AEW, I don't know if it was a ratings ploy or whatever, you can clearly see CM Punk talking to Jack Perry, throws a hand at him, and has a little scuffle with him before being separated moments before he wrestled in his final AEW match ever. Now, the conspiracy here is that Punk was willing to go back to WWE anyway. Brawl Out took a lot out of CM Punk. You know what I mean? It probably gave him a lot of negative feelings about the company in the first place, and Punk wanted a way out. So Jack Perry literally was the scapegoat for CM Punk to leave AEW and go to WWE. The scuffle that happened was Punk literally just trying to find a way out of his contract. He wanted to be fired because, I mean, how quick did WWE pick him up? It was 4 months after that situation had happened. And here's my question to you. WWE had a history with CM Punk. CM Punk sued a doctor in WWE. You know what I mean? And not only that, he was gone for 7 years, publicly trashed the company, and then not only was in the competition's company, but my thing is, why would any company, especially as big of a company as WWE, take in a guy that has just had a lot of history of not getting along with the people backstage unless they knew that he was going to do something to get himself fired. I think it's insane to think that CM Punk went into business for himself, attacked poor Jack Perry, who was just, trying to, show how hardcore he could be, I guess, at the time. And Punk used him and physically put his hands on him to then sneak his way back into the company that got him all the popularity in the first place, besides Ring of Honor, I guess. But I don't know, did CM Punk fight Jack Perry on purpose? Was Jack Perry in on it? Do you think it was just kind of wrong place, wrong time? And do you think CM Punk took advantage of the situation to go to WWE? Why would WWE take CM Punk back after all of that news came out?
We've got to have money.
Maybe it's because he's a draw. Maybe because CM Punk sells tickets. But is that not too much of a risk? I don't know. They've not hired a lot of other people back for a lot less. I guess we'll never know. Number 2, Triple H leaked Vince McMahon's Janelle Grant story because of what he did to NXT. Now, Triple H, of course, was the boss or the creative guy for NXT for pretty much its entire existence. He was responsible for making stars like Seth Rollins and obviously, Big E, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. Not in terms of them, being popular, but in terms of, in WWE, getting them the credibility in that company specifically. That's all Triple H. Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe, opened a lot of mainstream wrestling fans' eyes to some people that had already made their names on the independent scene in Japan and whatnot. Now they had a one show to spotlight all of these crazy new signings in NXT. Triple H had a heart condition. It was around, I want to say 2020, where Triple H had a serious heart issue and had to be rushed to the hospital. He did not have the ability to control NXT from wherever he was. And because of that, because of Triple H having heart problems, Vince McMahon decided to take NXT and turn it into something completely different. We got NXT 2.0, which is now focusing less on the in-ring things and more focusing on, okay, this is now once again a developmental show where we're going to be a little more bright, a little more colorful, a little bit more, exuberant. Does that work? That word work there? Whatever. Triple H literally has a heart issue and he sees his creation getting burned up and he has no control over it whatsoever. Now, another thing is, stories were coming out at the time that Vince McMahon did not like how Triple H was running NXT because NXT was not beating AEW in the ratings pretty consistently. Every now and again you get NXT beating AEW, but in the Wednesday night wars, AEW Dynamite consistently beat NXT in the ratings. Vince McMahon saw that as a failure. So he's flipping NXT suspiciously as Triple H had a heart condition into something completely different to spite Triple H. Not only that, stories were coming out about Stephanie McMahon not being good at her job. Around this same time, Shane McMahon is in the 2022 Royal Rumble and being made to look like a fucking idiot. His entrance was way later than it should have been, or way earlier than it should have been. He wasn't ready to get in there. He got whooped and was made to look like a fool in this Rumble match. And why is that? Why is Vince McMahon setting up a lot of his family members to get laughed at and looked at like losers and failures? Unless they knew something and put Vince McMahon in a bad position to make them look bad on his way out. Now, the whole Janelle Grant, situation where this whole ongoing lawsuit that's happening, which people for some reason think is over because other cases have been thrown out. No, the main one is still very much going on. We don't know yet about what that actually means. How would that story come out? You know what I mean? It couldn't have been somebody like me figuring it out. Wall Street Journal, while they are people with credible sources, who are those sources? And how close do you have to be to Vince McMahon in order to have that information in the first place? Some people think it was Triple H that had that information. Some people think that because Vince McMahon turned NXT into what it was, because he treated Triple H's heart problem so, lackadaisically, he didn't care about it. He just used it as an opportunity to do something else in the company rather than trying to make sure his own son-in-law was okay. Maybe it's time for Old Yeller to get put in the backyard for a little bit. And how do we do that? How do we actually force a man out of the company that is never going to leave ever you bring up a story about him, and this story, which apparently was the case from like years ago, all of a sudden coming to light. Now you hear all these stories about Michael Jackson about to buy Sony, dead. Bill Cosby about to, buy NBC. Oh, remember all the shit that you did in 2005? Yeah, now we're gonna use that against you. Not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying, why did it take 20 something years for it to, get brought to light right before he's about to make a big purchase? I don't know. Same could be said about Vince McMahon. I don't know. I feel like, seeing the show Succession might tell you everything you need to know. Mind you, it is a TV show, but my God, the McMahons are kind of like that. The only thing that would stop me from believing that this is true is the fact that Vince put Triple H as the head of creative. However, Vince did come back for just a little period of time in 2023 before being given the boot once again. It was very much swept under the rug, but it happened. But here's another part of that story. Nick Khan. Nick Khan has very obviously taken control of the backstage Vince McMahon duties of running WWE. And Nick Khan is also responsible for having as big of an international, market for WWE nowadays that they've ever had. Saudi Arabia and Nick Khan, have been hand in hand ever since Vince McMahon left the company. TKO being involved now. Was it all a plan? Was it a whole company-wide conspiracy to kick Vince McMahon out because he was never going to leave on his own? All right, well, we have the opportunity to sell this company and make a bunch of money off of it and, do all these shows and get all this money from these different countries. But maybe Vince didn't want to get involved in that. So he had to be excommunicated. I don't know. This is not me saying that Vince didn't do any of the stuff that he did. My only thing is, a lot of the times when a lot of, billionaires do bad stuff, you don't normally hear about it until it benefits somebody else. Number 3. Now, the Montreal Screwjob is something that every YouTube channel talks about forever. It's like, oh, what happened that night? Who actually knew about it? Did Triple H know about it? Did Shawn Michaels know about it? Which I think it actually came out that Shawn Michaels did know about it. But something that I don't think is talked about enough is the idea that Bret Hart himself was aware of what was going to happen at Survivor Series 1997. Here's the thing. Vince McMahon, in the build to Survivor Series, we only talk about the match. We don't talk about the build to that Michaels and Bret thing. We talk about, leading up to it, Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart didn't want to drop the belt to Shawn Michaels on his way out, and he didn't want to do this, he didn't want to do that. So Vince took the title off of him. My only thing is, in the build, it's being said more than ever that Vince McMahon is not just a commentator, he is the owner of the company. We are slowly, in the build to Survivor Series, starting to see the progression of who would become Mr. McMahon. It started in this storyline and maybe a couple months before that as well. And this was the crescendo of it. Now, you get the whole situation where, Shawn Michaels puts Bret Hart in the sharpshooter, a spot that had to have been agreed upon because Bret Hart, set himself up to be put in the sharpshooter. That's not something that just happens. And that's when Vince decides to ring the bell. He could have just done that whenever. You're the owner of the company. If you really wanted Bret Hart to not be WWE champion anymore, just strip him. Is it really that big of a deal? You could just take the title off of him and deal with him being angry about it. Who cares? But they decided to do it on TV in a match and embarrass Bret Hart in the process. Not only that, you see the close-up shot of Vince with spit on his face from Bret Hart. Insane shot, by the way. His accuracy was unbelievable. But then they leave the camera on Bret Hart. Now, somebody that's actually having a crash out over this, are you just going to film them normally? Are you not going to try to just cut the feed and just move on as if, that shouldn't be happening? Why are we now watching Bret Hart dismantle this announce table? Why do we have footage of him going WCW in the air? Why would Bret Hart not just immediately leave the ring and start decking Vince McMahon right there? Why did we now wait for a backstage incident that we have never seen of Bret punching Vince McMahon? He had a black eye, sure. I'm sure there's a lot of ways you can get a black eye in that situation. But why did we never see? We've seen footage from everything else that night. I've seen footage of, somebody telling Triple H, oh, you guys are going to pay for what you did. Just best believe it. You see footage of everybody walking backstage the night that it happened. You see, obviously, the footage from the in-ring stuff and all that stuff around there. You've seen the interviews. But why is there no footage of Bret Hart actually punching Vince? I don't know. The question is, Bret Hart did leave the company. Some people think it was because of how they handled his concussion at the time. I don't know. Maybe there's some research you got to do for yourself on that. But the idea that Bret Hart, throughout this entire time, was in on the Montreal Screwjob is very interesting to me. I could imagine, you know, as vocal as Bret Hart has been nowadays, he would probably have said something about it by now. He's been pretty vocal about how much he hates Triple H, and, you know, maybe that's something that Vince would say nowadays as well. I don't know. But I'd be interested to know what you think about it. Let me know in the comments. Number 4, this one's a little bit sad. Daniel Bryan was never cleared after having his neck problems in 2014, 2015, because they were afraid, WWE being they, were afraid that he would outshine Roman Reigns. Now, Bryan, you know, won the WWE Championship in WrestleMania 30, 2014. He had one defense of the championship before, unfortunately, having to relinquish it due to his neck problems, right? He did that, left for a little bit, came back in 2015, and won the Intercontinental Championship. Shortly after that, he had neck problems again, he had to leave. Now, I understand this is a very serious thing in a short amount of time. However, I think it's irrefutable that Daniel Bryan was one of WWE's top stars pretty much even when his return in 2018 happened. But they didn't clear him between 2015 and 2018. And in between all of that time was Roman Reigns. The thing in 2014 and 2015's Royal Rumble matches, the problem that these superstars had was that none of them were named Daniel Bryan. You go back to the final 2 of the 2014 Royal Rumble match. People were cheering for Roman Reigns to win. Imagine if he had won 1 year earlier than he did. Roman Reigns would have been the face of the company for years to come, but they went with Batista. 1 year later, the fans wanted Daniel Bryan to win the Royal Rumble again. Who won it? Roman Reigns. What's different from last year? His name is not Daniel Bryan, so therefore, boo. Bryan, you're just a mid-carder now. You're going to win the Intercontinental Championship. Let's not have you go after your WWE Championship again, because why would we do that? You're going to go after the Intercontinental Championship. But now Bryan's having the neck problems again. Mind you, they just had that situation from the Rumble in 2015 where people wanted Daniel Bryan, and my God, I feel like if we bring Daniel Bryan back, that's going to happen again. Let's not clear him whatsoever. I think about the Talking Smack segment that The Miz had with Daniel Bryan. He goes, well, you know, you really want to go wrestle, why don't you quit? Why don't you go back on the bingo halls? And Bryan really looked upset about that. Now, people, you could say, obviously, him walking off on that promo segment was a work, but I think it's been documented that him leaving that set was actually like a real thing at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But you could tell Daniel Bryan wanted to wrestle. 2016, I think he was ready to go. 2017, he was ready to go. But no, they made him a general manager. They made him a backstage guy. And why is that? You have one of the best professional wrestlers in the world at your fingertips, but WWE will not clear him. Why is that? Some people believe, and I don't know, maybe not, some people believe that Daniel Bryan was held down and not cleared past 2015 to give Roman Reigns more of a spotlight. You had him winning the WWE Championship at Survivor Series 2015. You had him defending the Rumble in 2016. You had him winning the Universal Championship in 2018. I think that was a little bit after Bryan started wrestling again. Roman beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. He beat Triple H at WrestleMania. He had a lot of success with the WWE Championship, having these matches with AJ Styles, having these matches, God, I can't even think of any other fucking Roman feuds. My goodness. Who did Roman drop the belt to? Oh, Seth, I guess, yeah? I think about what the world of WWE would have looked like if Daniel Bryan had not been injured in 2015. If he had stayed around, would he still be in the mid-card division? Would they have just, like, downgraded him to being a mid-card guy for the rest of his career right after one of the biggest WrestleMania main events of all time, one of the craziest storylines of all time? Seems weird that you wouldn't want to at least try to get him back in. But no, doctors won't clear him, even though everybody outside of WWE will. Why is that? Some people really do think that Roman Reigns has had all of the success that he's had, which, mind you, a lot of the stuff that he's had now came after Daniel Bryan came back to WWE. So really, we didn't even need to do that at all. But between the years of 2015 and 2018, Daniel Bryan was allegedly actually not cleared by WWE doctors because they didn't want him to outshine their ace, their face of the company, somebody who the fans didn't want, Roman Reigns. But if Bryan would have been in that company at that time because he had so much fire under him from all these years, I think he would have outshined them. And if Bryan was in the company for all that time, the fans would have been saying, we really do not want Roman. We want Bryan. But now you're in a situation where you only have Roman. Sure, you get Seth and Dean for a couple of seconds, and you got AJ Styles in there, sure. But you know who the face of the company is, and his name is Roman Reigns. There has not been a single person in that company at that time that was more over than Daniel Bryan. Seth Rollins being one of them, Dean Ambrose being one of them. I'd even say he was on the same level as AJ Styles, if not more over, comparing AJ's WWE peak to Daniel Bryan's WWE peak. Daniel Bryan was the fans' guy. Not after 2015, he wasn't. Maybe that was for a specific reason. I don't know. Now, here is my time. It's number 5 to give my WWE conspiracy theory. Now, this is not something that I have made up. This is just something that I actually believe in. All of the other ones that I've read out are just things that have been regurgitated by other people. I've, read Reddit threads and watched YouTube videos, and this is what people, are theorizing, speculating on. And I'd like to actually know what your scariest or craziest WWE conspiracy theory is in the comments below, because I'll be reading them. I'd actually like to see some stuff that I previously did not know myself. But here is one that I actually think is true. Now, I'm going to say all of this is alleged because I don't have any proof to back this up. I'm going to say what I think. And this one is a little bit of a trigger warning because it is a little bit of a sad situation, so I don't want to upset anybody. This is how we're going to end the video. It's going to be on a little bit of a sour note. I think Owen Hart was killed. I think that Owen Hart having the fall that he did at Over the Edge 1999 was on purpose. Now, I don't want to even go into like the backstage politics at the time, but at this time, there was some legitimate beef between Bret Hart and Vince McMahon, or the Hart family, and WWE. And Owen Hart was made to look like an asshole throughout the end of his life in his WWE career because of his association with the Hart family. The Blue Blazer was something that I'm not sure that he wanted for himself or that anybody wanted Owen Hart to do. Owen Hart was a fantastic athlete. He was one of the most promising Harts ever, and they saddled him with some really comical stuff to do throughout his final years in WWE. And I don't really want to go into that because it makes it seem like what I'm about to say is kind of like kiddie, like, they were beefing, so he tried to fucking kill him. Like that. Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about what actually happened on the night. If you watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode, Martha Hart, right? Is that his wife? She's taking you through what exactly happened at Over the Edge. Now, his entrance was supposed to be him on a harness, clipped up, and I don't know, it was supposed to like glide down or whatever the presentation was supposed to be. Now, you have to have a pretty serious clip, that you are attached to. And the company that was harnessing Owen Hart specializes in this kind of stuff, specializes in, the kind of entrance that Owen Hart's about to do, making sure you have the structural integrity to pull off an entrance like this. We've already seen from years before this situation, Shawn Michaels ziplining from the top of the arena all the way down. It's like, and obviously it's the 90s, but it's like technology has advanced at that point to a point where you can do that. It's not like, I know we have all these computerized things now, but it's like, it's not like this can't happen or there's a lot of room for error because it's a period of time where things weren't too advanced yet. No, it's 1999. It was all right back then. Now, Owen Hart, around 200 pounds, maybe a little bit more. You need to have a clip that holds that. But the clip that they used held 3 pounds of weight. The clip that they used held 3 pounds. Or kid, correct me if I'm not getting the weight right on that, but the clip that they used to harness Owen Hart up was not supposed to hold like any weight whatsoever. Not enough for a whole human being, at least. And I think back to other risky things that'll happen in WWE. Vince McMahon is always the first person to do it. There's a video of 80-year-old Vince McMahon showing Rob Gronkowski how to fucking, dive off the top of something onto a crash pad. Mind you, that's a different story, but like, Vince will do something to let you know, this is okay, I'm doing it, you can do it as well. Was there no rehearsal for this entrance? Because if anybody had put that harness on and had tried to do the entrance of Owen Hart that night, they would have fallen. So why did that not happen? Why did Vince McMahon not try it out before? And if he did, How did that work out? This clip only holds 3 pounds. Owen Hart is not allowed to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. His wife will not let it happen. She will not let her husband be in there. And I think it's for a specific reason. I don't know if it's negligence. I don't know what it is, but I think it was on purpose. That is my personal opinion. I think Owen Hart was not supposed to die that night, but they made sure that he did. But I don't know. Maybe I don't have all the facts. Let me know what you guys think about the kind of stuff that I brought up. I'm sure there's a lot of differing opinions on that. Kid, I want to know what you think about the situation. And let me know your conspiracy theories about WWE. My goodness, wrestling is scary in a lot of ways. And we're just gonna have to take what, again, I said at the beginning of this video, we know a little too much about the industry. Or do we? We know as much as we know. How much do we not know? We'll see you next time for a Reddit video. Peace out.